The 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Now, if you give the 14th Amendment a quick once-over read, it appears like a very good thing. However, this video is going to show you exactly what it is. It's not a good thing at all for us. Right? There's 5 sections of the 14th Amendment, and I'm going to read them, and then I'm going to explain to you what we just read. Section 1. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of the law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Now that sounds like a good thing. However, notice without due process of the law. We all heard life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in the Declaration of Independence. However, when it was originally wrote, it was life, liberty, and property. This was changed by Thomas Jefferson. Well, why did Thomas Jefferson change it? Now, I read articles that said he spiced up the wording to make it sound more elegant, but here is the truth, the real reason why. All right, Section 1 of the 14th Amendment sounds great for us. However, without due process of the law, without due process of the law, it takes it all away. It subtracts everything that's mentioned. Now the government can take away every right mentioned. Before the 14th Amendment, the government couldn't take your land, couldn't seize any of your property, including your children. People had the right to bear arms, but this amendment opened up the door to them taking that away. Now, you have to buy a license in order to purchase a gun, or go to them if you want to go fishing with your family. Yeah, that's a natural right and God-given right for you. But now you have to go to them and buy a license through them because they made it illegal unless you're licensed. This law opened doors this amendment, opened doors for like seatbelt laws, speeding tickets, the prohibition, making marijuana illegal, and having people spend their lives in jail due to laws like that. America has 5% of the world's population, but has 25% of the world's imprisoned people. 1/4 of the people incarcerated in the whole world are from the United States, and a vast majority of them are incarcerated due to the 14th Amendment. With the original Constitution, most people would not be in jail today. There would be no drug wars or mafia promoting illegal acts, because if it were under natural law, like the original Constitution states, their criminal activity would be ineffective. It would be useless. Under natural law, if you kill someone, you go to jail. If you steal from someone, you'll go to jail. If you hurt someone or destroy their property, you'll go to jail. But under this new amendment, we see people going to jail for things like jaywalking, chewing gum in court, not appearing in court for unpaid parking tickets, and spending time in jail. Some of them got over 20 years just for marijuana. Someone got a life sentence for marijuana. And just so you know, when a police officer reads you your rights, it is in a different language called legalese. And you say, yes, I understand, and it means that you are admitting guilt. So if you hear someone say, you're innocent until proven guilty, know this, it is the opposite in the USA court system. You are guilty until proven innocent. This is why people sit in jail awaiting their court dates and bail and have bail bondsmen. Section 2 of the 14th Amendment, representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to their respective numbers, counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. But when the right to vote at any election for the choice of electors for President and Vice President of the United States, representatives in Congress, the executive and judicial officers of a state, or members of the legislature thereof, is denied to any of the male inhabitants of such state being 21 years of age and citizens of the United States, or in any way abridged except for participation in rebellion or other crime. The basis of representation therein shall be reduced in the proportion which the number of such male citizens shall bear to the whole number of male citizens 21 years of age in such state. Now, if you understand that, great for you. But they word it very difficult, but I'm going to break it down to what you're seeing and what they're telling you. Okay, first, I want you to notice the word persons. It's not highlighted, but it should be. When you hear the first line of the Constitution, it reads, "We the people." A person by law is not a people. A person is a citizen of the United States. There are people and there are citizens of the United States, and they are not the same. I learned about this through the IRS story of Sherry Peel Jackson, and she was right. The people of the United States are not obligated to pay the IRS, but she learned the hard way, spending 4 years in jail, that she is not a people, but a citizen. And now notice participation in rebellion. Rebellion is to fight against the system, as I will explain in this. And the rest of Part 2 is about delegates in Congress and the right to vote for elections. Citizens do have a right to vote, and the citizens have the right to vote. However, every election is rigged, and everyone appointed to office is their guy, as Part 3 of this amendment will show you. And always remember from this part, a citizen is a person of the United States, not a people. A person is a citizen of the United States. In Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, now here's where it starts getting good. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of President and Vice President, or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States, or under any state, who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress, or as an officer of the United States, or as a member of any state legislature, or as an executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such a disability. Section 3 shows what Congress really is. No person shall be a senator, member of Congress, president, vice president, judge, or an executive. And notice, civil or military. So a banking executive or CEO of any large corporation cannot be a person, aka citizen of the United States. You must be a people. Notice, if they are engaged in insurrection or rebellion, Congress will remove the disability. So if a citizen achieves being appointed to Congress, they will be removed. Or notice, given aid or comfort, if one of their people helps the enemy, aka the citizens, they will be removed. Notice the oath. The oath that they take is the same as inside the Masonic Lodge. You can watch that Masonic video that I made. It's called Mason Lodge. Or the Masons, Freemasons, excuse me. What happens inside your local lodge? Okay, on to this next part. This is part 4, and this is the part that's truly telling what the whole thing is truly all about. Part 1 and part 4 are the two main parts that are the big connections. But here we go. Section 4. The validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law, including debts incurred for payment of pensions and bounties for services in suppressing insurrection or rebellion, shall not be questioned, but neither the United States nor any state shall assume to pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or any claim for the loss or emancipation of any slave, but all such debts, obligations, and claims shall be held illegal and void. First, notice in the first line, validity of the public debt, and notice the last line, all such debts shall be held illegal and void. All public debt is illegal and void. But will the courts enforce it? Oh yes, yes they will. Notice for services in suppressing insurrection and rebellion, notice, shall not be questioned. Not questioned by who? The courts, although it is illegal and void. Also, notice, the United States or any state shall not pay any debt in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States. So you are a citizen drowning in debt, we will not help you because this is where we want you, a slave driven outside of God's laws. So this amendment was brought forth to put people in jail and allow banks to enslave people. In a quick summary of what it is, totally disregarding the original Constitution. Without due process, they now have due process and could take away the rights and liberties and property that was originally granted to us in the original Constitution. And that's why I did repost that video to become a state citizen. It would be the best advice to do so. Section 5 of the 16th Amendment allows the courts to enforce with due process through their rituals. Although it is illegal, the courts will look the other way and always side with the banks with these void and illegal contracts. And I will explain why the contracts are void and illegal, and it has to do with the backing of the United States currency. But first, I'm going to take you through a history lesson. The lesson will be a lot different than anything you've seen in a textbook, just like the 14th Amendment interpretation that we just read. If you go online and listen to anybody interpret the 14th Amendment, you hear it much differently. They'll read half the amendment and tell you completely different answers, but you saw it with your own eyes. And, go listen to their interpretations. You'll laugh, seriously. All right, this section has to do with race and Jews. One of the very first things I learned when I began reading the Bible front to back is that there is two types of man that walk the earth, the sons of God and the children of Israel. The true Jews are Judeans. Judeans are the original inhabitants of the land. Another name for them is the Assyrians, or as we are told, Hitler called them the Aryans. Aryan, Assyrian. Hear the resemblance. Okay, the race of Aryans, these are the true Jews. It has nothing to do with Jewish faith. the Jewish faith is fake, and so is its branch, Christianity. We are lied to about religion. We are lied to about our history. The origin of mankind itself comes from the death of the Sphinx, the great jaguar that was tricked by what appeared as a harmless winged serpent that was led into the light, and Lucifer was the light. I go over this in How the Universe Began video. And if you Google ancient Sumerian artwork, you'll see the events of the beginning of our universe. It's the beginning of our universe, all the pictures that you see. The great jaguar was killed and turned to stone. Yeah, this is something that Amun-Ra does to his opponents. And you'll find this story in Mayan mythology. And its soul was shredded into mankind. That is why they tell us the Sphinx's face is changed. Well, it was originally a jaguar's face, but now it's the face of man. Why? Because it is mankind. If you read the Quran, you'll see the ayah, we created mankind, and they did. Who created mankind? The Assyrian race did. Under whose orders? God the Father. If you read Job of the Bible, he says that he is trapped in the flesh. Well, that is what happened to the Sphinx. It was trapped. We are trapped in the flesh today. And the Assyrians own our bodies because they created them. And today, our financial system is based on our bodies. Our birth certificates, our social security numbers, our documents of ownership, and our bodies are owned by the Federal Reserve. That letter that's on your birth certificate or social security card tells us what Federal Reserve location owns the rights to our bodies. That is why back in history, like a bank collecting their collateral, repossessing a car once it's gone into default, when the world's markets crashed, Adolf Hitler began gathering people into concentration camps. They tell us it was because of the fake Jewish religion, but they were not Jews, but children of Israel. Now, the Assyrians, aka the Aryans, Assyrians, of course you hear it, they are the Jews, and Jew has a root word, which is Judean, and Judean means the original inhabitant of the land. They were here before the jaguar arrived. Shape-shifting monsters, they were and are the dinosaurs, as crazy as that may sound. The giants are the Nephilim, and the Nephilim are the Aryans, the Assyrians. Part 2 of the 14th Amendment, American History, American Slavery, and its Evolution, 1865-1872. Now, we've all been taught about American history, and we see a black man being sold by a white person. And it was stated that white people took the slaves to America and had them work for them, African slaves. But there's the truth about American history. There's a twist in there. And you'll see these men here, the people who changed the United States. You're going to see at the end of this video that there's something different with the men that you see in front of you. What we have here is the Illuminati card game. And this is the card Rewriting History. They change the events in history to change people's thoughts, perception, and to lead them astray. Now, first picture that I'm going to show you here are of emancipated slave children from New Orleans. And notice that their skin color is not black, but they're white. Okay, they were emancipated in New York, sent up from New Orleans, escaped, or whatever the case may be. Well, there is a story, an untold story about what went on in America with white slavery. Most people don't know, But if you do your research and you truly study the topic, over 2/3 of the slaves came from Europe. So that means that over 2/3 of the slaves were white-skinned. So the whites were enslaving themselves. Okay, notice again, slave ships to America. And if you look at these pictures here, these are of people that were sent here from Ireland. They were sent from France. They were sent from Great Britain, England. And they're the poor people. They were the slaves, the slave children, white slave children. And this here is an author by the name of J.A. Rogers. J.A. Rogers, in this is the final book that he wrote. He wrote at least 100 books on the topic or close to it. And his last book was The 5 Negro Presidents According to What White People Said They Were. In this book, he has a part where he says that white children were sold into slavery. And he writes in there that they must have had some type of makeup on to sell them as black, but that's not the case whatsoever. They're openly known as white children. And what he goes on to say is that it was Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Warren Harding, and Abraham Lincoln were all black. And you see here that he lived from 1860 to 1966. He wrote that final book in 1965. All right, so you see this is Google saying presidents with African ancestry, and of course Barack Obama. Then you have Thomas Jefferson. Now, the thing about Thomas Jefferson is that historians will be like, oh, okay, if you read the Wikipedia article, his great-grandmother was African American. But if you read, there's a lot of people that have researched this topic and are saying that his parents were black. You go on Andrew Jackson, you have more of the same. Warren Harding, Calvin Coolidge. Now, Calvin and Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, you have from the 1900s, so I would assume that they have links in there. But these first 4 were the ones that he did announce, 4 out of the 5. And if you go to what Abraham Lincoln said about himself, now this is Abraham Lincoln described himself back in 1838, 1839 as a black man, as having black complexion. In 1850, he described himself as dark. And if you know, in 1860, when he became president, he had a group of black men with him. One of the black men were William Henry Johnson. So during the president-elect, there was a group of black men. Now, this is before the Civil War started. And we're taught that slaves have no rights whatsoever. But if you look in here, this is, again, Wikipedia, because it's run by the Wiccans, just like the Simpsons say. Well, they say that there is a presidential candidate by the name of Frederick Douglass back in the 1840s. Well, for him to be a presidential candidate, slavery didn't end until 1865. So how could they have a black presidential candidate in the 1840s? Going on, here is Thomas Jefferson. And this is a picture of his 6th great-grandson. And he's a black man. Okay, you go on to George Washington, and you see his family. And his family are black as well. Take you on to the $2 bill. Now, there's a black man on the $2 bill, and it brought up a lot of questions, of course. A lot of people say that it was John Henson, that he was on there. John Henson had black ties. And years back, how I first learned about all this was there was someone that was saying that there's a great conspiracy against black people, and that he had evidence that the first 14 presidents of the United States were black men. But they only called George Washington the first president because he had white skin. And he had some compelling evidence that, that he was correct. And there was a picture. Here is the image right here. This here is John Hanson. And John Hanson was where this whole controversy started. It was probably about between 5 to 10 years ago. And it was saying that he was the first black U.S. president, that they had an image of him. And you notice here, it's USA Today putting a fact check out there. Now, if it was something that was that obvious, you wouldn't have USA putting a fact check out there saying, oh, wait, he's not the president. We did our research and we debunked it. And you'll see that there's plenty of sites that went forward and did this to say that he was not the first black president. Well, why? I'll tell you why, because it's damage control. You see, the whole thing from the beginning of it all is that black people were in charge and the white people were the slaves. You think about it. You have 3 white men and 1 black man. Okay, the black man on an average is physically normally bigger than the white man. But if you have 3 black men against 1 white man, if he has a gun or not, and guns back then, single shots that they had, boom, you got to reload it. They would have been overtaken. They're bigger, stronger, more physical. And I'm not saying that black people were not slaves, because they were. Again, what I'm saying is that it was the Assyrian race over the children of Israel. Children of Israel have both black and white skin. And it's the Assyrians, not each other. What it is divide and conquer. This is Genesis 11. And this is very important to know. I'll have a description at the end of this about everything that's involving. But this is the King James Version. The whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And the land of Shinar. Now, if you saw my other video in regards to the Masons, you have Shinars, the land of Shinar. Okay, that's what you're looking at, Shinars. Okay, only a Shinar can be a 32nd degree Mason. Okay, and here we go on to part 3. Now, this is the children of Israel here. It says, let us make brick and slime. They made mortar out of. And what they're doing is they start to build a city and a tower. And this is the Tower of Babel. Okay, and the Lord came down to see this city and tower, which the children of men builded. They have all one language. And he says that now they'll be able to do whatever they want to do. Nothing will be able to restrain them. They can do anything that their imaginations are set to. So what does it say next in 11:7? It says, let us go down and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech, that they may not understand one another's look, that they may not understand one another's cultures or customs. That's what it's all about. Divide and conquer. That's what the whole thing is about. Most people don't realize, don't understand, and don't even care to understand, but there is the Assyrian race, and they're at war against us, against the children of Israel. Okay, and I'll go on to part 9. Therefore, the name of it is called Babel, because the Lord confounded the language of all the earth and scattered them abroad. And that's exactly what happened. So it was the children of Israel were very powerful. They built this big tower. They were building this grand city, but it had to be stopped. And I'll explain why in a second. This is one that I've covered before, and this is from the Hidden Bible. What the Hidden Bible is the Apocrypha. And when King James assembled the King James Version of the Bible in 1609, he put down a authorized version of the Bible. And that's what most people have in their house, is the authorized version of the Bible, which means that the children of Israel were allowed to see, not just the Jews, or Judeans, as this will be explained. And the unauthorized, the Apocrypha, was only there for the Jews, meaning that the children of Israel could not see what's inside this book. They weren't allowed to view it. Today we can, because of the time period that we're in. But I'm going to explain to you, this is 2 Maccabees 14:37. I'm just going to go over the highlighted parts. Racist, one of the elders of Jerusalem. Racist sounds like racist, okay? A man who loves his compatriots, like a racist that only likes white people. If he's a white guy, I only like white people, I don't like black people, right? And what it goes on, called father of the Jews, okay? So he's an elder in Jerusalem, elder of the Jews. Now the Judeans are the ones that are against us. Like I said many times in my videos, that Donald Trump is the high priest of the Jews, or Assyrians. Okay, and what it says is no mingling with the Gentiles. So it's like an elder white man sees, his grandson playing with a black kid, and he's like, no, there's no mingling. That's a racist. That's exactly what it is. Okay, that's one that loves only his people and wants nothing for the other people, nothing but bad. That's what a racist is, and that's what a racist is. So the first presidents up to Abraham Lincoln were all black men. Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States, and before George Washington, there was 14 presidents of the United States. So that was 30 total presidents of the United States were black men. Now, American history, I have 1865, it says 1972 on a slide, but it's supposed to be 1872, that 7-year period. So 1865 to 1872 was a period when America had no slavery. But prior to that, there was slavery, and after 1872, it was a changing period of slavery. That's when you see the 14th Amendment came out in 1866, it was altered in 1868. Well, that was to set up the new form of slavery that was to come about, and that's going to be explained here. In the Book of Mormon, Jesus comes forward. Now, he comes forward to John Smith, but John Smith wasn't the only person that saw Jesus. Jesus appeared like a hologram, and many people of John Smith's party talked to him. They actually asked him questions. Where this comes in the Book of Mormon is called Doctrine and Covenants. This was a book, it's kind of like an Apocrypha book. If you buy a normal version of the Book of Mormon, this will not be included. There's also some other books like the Book of Moses that I will cover someday that you will not find in the normal Book of Mormon. And what's inside the Book of Moses is pretty wild stuff, but that's for another day. And I'm going to go through the highlighted parts and tell you what Jesus said to them at the time. Okay, saith the Lord concerning wars shortly come to pass, beginning at the rebellion of South Carolina. South Carolina is where the Civil War began. Death and misery of many souls. The southern states shall be divided against the northern states. Again, that's exactly what happened in the Civil War. Slaves shall rise up against their masters, who shall be marshaled and disciplined for war. Now, you see the people that fought in the war, they were all white men that were dead. They were the slaves. They're the ones that were marshaled for war. And on to number 6, mourn and with famine and plague and earthquake. Now, if you know about the Civil War, there was a great plagues, people from eating cans. There was all types of sicknesses from their wounds, and many people died from both famine and plague. And also, too, there was an earthquake in the 1880s that was pretty substantial that came in South Carolina as basically an end to all this. Okay, God sees the past, present, and future and are continually before the Lord, because that's the system that you're in. Your future is predetermined. Prayer is the only thing that alters your course of destiny, so be sure to pray, because you're not destined to succeed, you're destined to fail. So pray to have your course changed. Okay, the earth will be Christ. Yes, it will, for 1,000 years. And on the earth, his church will always remain. All right, the white stone, Revelation 2:1-7. Now, this is parts where they do question him. It's the higher order of the kingdom. The white stone, if you're given the white stone, that's the greatest honor that you can get under Christ. Okay, that's the white stone entitles you to heaven. In the name of the Lord God, bloodshed coming will be in South Carolina. And if you look at the bottom scripture, number 13, this is where John Smith is praying, and he says that it may probably arise through the slave question, the voice declared to him. I was praying earnestly, December 25th, 1832. So this knowledge came forward in 1832, and the war began in the 1860. So 30 years before the whole thing began, Jesus came forth in like a hologram and spoke to many people of John Smith's party. Now, John Smith, he was not children of Israel. John Smith was a Jew. Just like all the apostles were Jews. They were not children of Israel. We are children of Israel. Okay, number 66, the sacred treasury of the Lord. Okay, that's what this whole ordeal is about. The sacred treasury of the Lord. Well, what is that? A seal shall be placed upon it. Now, if you notice our money, we have a seal. If you notice your birth certificate, you have a seal. You notice your Social Security card, there's a seal placed upon it. When you look at old money were banknotes. People would take their gold to different banks, and a bank would say, okay, this gold was worth this much, we'll print you a $5 ticket. You got a $3 ticket, you got one for 39 cents, and it would be different amounts. Each one depending on how much gold you were given. Okay, you can get a note for 50 cents or you can get one for $500. But what comes forward is the change of money. The Civil War changed how our money was. Now it's $5, $10, $20, $50, or $100. And each one of them has that seal on it. Why? Because it's treasury of the Lord, how the people are accounted. Now, here are the banks of the Federal Reserve. How to find your bank is like this. If you have a birth certificate before 2000, on the document, there will be a letter before a string of numbers. That letter won't be on birth certificates later than 2000, but before 2000, it's there. And that same letter will be on the back of Social Security cards before a string of numbers. But if you have a Social Security number before 2000, you will not have a letter. Only Social Security numbers printed after 2000 have a letter on them. So to find your bank, you need a birth certificate before 2000 or a Social Security card after 2000. The letter on your Social Security card or on your birth certificate shows what bank owns you. I am owned by the Reserve in San Francisco, L. What does it mean we are owned? Federal Reserve owns our bodies, but not our souls. And recently someone asked me about clones. And I told them the explanation of the clones comes from Genesis after the death of Jacob, also known as Israel. God renamed Jacob Israel in the Bible. Also, two other books, Exodus and Numbers. So it's Genesis after the death of Israel, Exodus and Numbers. And this is what the cloning is about. All right, Jacob, renamed by God, Israel, had 12 children, and his children had children. After Israel's death, God ordered his children into captivity. A small group, maybe 100 or so, went into captivity. They stayed in captivity 430 years and then came out led by Moses. And they were then called the Israelites. Israelites, that there was many of them now. Each of Israel's 12 children and their families remained in captivity for 430 years and came out Israelites. Hundreds of thousands of men from each child came out of captivity to enter into wars led by Moses. So in 430 years, you'd think every 20 years a generation, even if they had 10 kids, there's no way possible that they would come up with these astronomical numbers. And you see in other God's books like the Quran, it says we made men. The mankind in the Bible were multiplied like the stars. That's what happened. Who are the clones? We are the clones. And if you read Exodus and Numbers closely, look for the ages of death, and you will see fathers and sons fought in the same wars together, and they died at exactly the same age. So a father and son at the same age in the same war. It's all in the books of Moses. And the books of Moses are the first 5 books of the Bible. And that is also the Torah. The Torah is written out a little differently, but, it goes over the same exact topics and gives you some big answers to things that you would miss by just simply reading the Bible. Okay. All right. We are the clones. Our bodies were made by them. The number of man is 666. What does that mean? It means 6 protons, 6 neutrons, 6 electrons. This is why we get old and die. Our souls are trapped in the flesh. Job of the Bible has clear understanding of this, as you see in the scripture. So, the Federal Reserve owns our bodies. Our mothers signed over our bodies to the state, not our soul. Okay? The world's financial system isn't based on gold like it was prior to the crash in 1929. The system is based on the flesh and souls of mankind. So when the stock market crashes, we will be collected and taken to the bank that owns us. Like defaulting on a car payment, the bank would repossess your car. The Federal Reserve will be collecting their collateral, our bodies.